My husband stole my mother's engagement ring and gave it to his ex for closure. I asked why. He said, she needed it more than a dead woman ever will. Everyone at the table went silent. 4 days later, his ex showed up screaming at our door. My name's Carmen. I'm 42. I've lived in Asheville my whole life. My mom raised me on her own after my dad passed when I was young. She was the kind of woman who held grudges like old receipts but loved hard and real. Before she passed from cancer, she gave me 2 things, her cinnamon apple pie recipe and her engagement ring. That ring wasn't just jewelry, it was legacy. The gold was worn soft in places. The sapphire had a tiny chip, barely visible, but she always said it made it more hers. When she handed it to me, she said, "Don't let just anyone touch this. If he's worth your time, he'll know it's sacred." Levi seemed like that man. When we met, I was in a bit of a haze. Grief has a way of dulling the edges of life. We met at a used bookstore during a thunderstorm, both reaching for the same beat-up Hemingway novel. I thought it was poetic. He was gentle, witty, and charming in a quiet, observant way. He made me laugh when I hadn't smiled in months. We dated for 8 months before moving in. He proposed a year later with a simple silver band. Said he wanted us to start fresh, so he didn't use my mother's ring. At the time, I respected that. I didn't want to push it. We married at Lake Junaluska in a tiny ceremony. He cried during our vows. Said things like home isn't a place, it's you. Now, looking back, I don't know if he ever meant it, or if he just knew what to say. The first couple years were good, genuinely. We had our struggles, money mostly, his freelance design work was inconsistent, but we made it work. We had our routines. Our inside jokes. Our little rituals. He made me tea every morning. We'd walk around the neighborhood at dusk and talk about retiring somewhere quiet one day, maybe upstate New York. But things shifted sometime last winter. It was subtle. He got quiet more often. Zoned out during conversations. He'd leave the house for hours, claiming to take mental health walks. He never lied exactly, but he avoided eye contact more. Then things started disappearing. First, a locket of my mom's. Then a photo of her and I at the beach. I thought I was just misplacing them. I mean, grief and time do weird things to your memory. But it started to feel like something else. I'd ask him if he'd seen the missing items, and he'd always say no with that same bored shrug. And then, the ring. I went looking for it one afternoon after dreaming of my mom. I often wore it on a chain when I missed her more than usual, just something grounding. I opened the porcelain dish on the dresser and my stomach sank. Gone. I searched the entire house, even places that made no sense, under couch cushions, the freezer, the car glove box. Nothing. That ache settled in my chest like a stone. I knew, deep down. I just didn't want to believe it. And then, at dinner, he confirmed it. The next few days were numb. He didn't apologize. He didn't bring it up. It was like he expected me to just absorb it, like some emotional sponge, and keep moving. I slept in the guest room. He didn't ask why. I don't think he even cared. But 4 days later, something even worse happened. I was folding laundry on a Thursday afternoon when the doorbell rang, followed by the sound of rapid pounding and muffled shouting. I opened the door to see Alina, his ex. I had never met her before, only seen one photo in an old email once. But I recognized her immediately. Blonde, about my height, wearing a faded hoodie and joggers, eyes blazing. "You psychotic beast," she screamed, pushing toward the door frame. "What the hell did you say to Levi?" I was stunned. "Excuse me? You told him I stole the ring? Are you serious?" I blinked, processing the words. "He gave you that ring?" "Yes," she said, shoving something small into my face. "The ring. My mother's ring. He said it was his to give. Said it would help me move on." I froze. He told me you said it was okay, she added, voice breaking. I stared at the ring in her hand. And then back at her. He lied to both of us. She didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me, ring trembling in her hand. Then, without another word, she shoved it into my palm and walked off. I closed the door and leaned against it until my knees gave out. I didn't move from that spot for what felt like an hour. Just sat there on the floor, the front door closed behind me, holding my mother's ring in my hand like it was made of glass and fire at the same time. It didn't even feel real, how could it? The woman he swore was just a chapter he closed long ago had just handed me back the only piece of my mother I had left, after being told a lie I wasn't even aware was being told. Levi came home that night like nothing happened. Grocery bags in one hand, keys jingling, wearing that same gray sweatshirt he always wore on errand days. I was standing in the kitchen when he walked in, the ring sitting quietly on the counter. He saw it instantly. His face didn't drop. His mouth didn't part in shock. He just looked at it like he had misplaced a remote and it had finally turned up. I guess she brought it back, he said. I didn't reply. Not a word. I just stared. That silence, it was louder than screaming. He shifted his weight, scratched the back of his neck. You talked to her? He asked. You gave her my mother's ring, I said. She needed it, he replied, flatly. She's been through a lot. I buried my mother. I watched her shrink into a stranger in a hospice bed. I held her hand when it went cold, I said, my voice steady but shaking under the surface. But you gave away the last thing she left me, to your ex. Levi looked away, like that was just too inconvenient a truth to hear. She was suicidal, Carmen, he muttered, almost defensively. She called me crying in January. Said she had nothing left. That ring, she said she wanted something to hold on to. Something real. And you gave her my mother's engagement ring. You weren't wearing it. You had it in a bowl like a paperclip, he said. That was when I realized something fundamental about him. He didn't think what he did was wrong. He genuinely believed he was being noble, like he'd sacrificed something insignificant to save a life. You could have talked to me, I said. You could have asked. You could have told me any of this before stealing it. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. And then he said the same thing he had at the table, she needed it more than a dead woman ever will. I laughed. Actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so grotesque, so casually heartless, that it felt like the only thing left to do. I laughed until my stomach hurt. Until my legs gave out. Until I sat down on the floor with the ring in my hand and felt the weight of 3 years of marriage collapse inside my chest like a dying star. He didn't try to comfort me. He just stood there. Eventually, I got up and walked past him, still clutching the ring. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up scrolling through old voicemails from my mom, listening to her tell me to take care of myself, that I deserved more, that love shouldn't have to hurt this much. The next morning, I called Malcolm, Levi's younger brother. We'd always had a good relationship, and I knew he'd want to know. I told him everything. The ring. The dinner. Alina. There was a long pause on the other end before he finally said, I had a feeling. Turns out, Levi had been in touch with Alina the entire time we were married. Texts. Calls. He even saw her when he went on a work trip to DC the year before. Malcolm didn't want to interfere, didn't know the extent, but he always felt like something wasn't right. I thought maybe he was just trying to be friends, Malcolm admitted. But, damn, Carmen. I'm sorry. So was I sorry for ignoring the signs. Sorry for defending him when friends raised eyebrows. Sorry for giving my whole heart to a man who didn't have space for it. That afternoon, I started gathering documents. Marriage license, tax returns, insurance info. Not because I was ready to leave, yet, but because something in me shifted. Some lock inside me clicked open and I knew I couldn't unknow what I now knew. That night, Levi stayed out late. No explanation. No apology. I didn't even ask. I just sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, the ring sitting next to me on the table like a ghost. When he came back, he smelled like cigarettes and cold air. He looked at me. I looked back. No words passed between us. He went to bed. I stayed outside. The following days were weird. Surreal. He acted like nothing had happened. Asked if I wanted to try a new diner that opened downtown. Showed me a video of a puppy on his phone. It was like he was hoping I'd just forget. But I didn't. Each time I looked at him, I saw that moment at the dinner table again. She needed it more than a dead woman ever will. I saw the look on Alina's face when she realized he lied to both of us. I saw my mother's hands, trembling, placing the ring in mine with so much love it felt like blessing. And now? I couldn't look at him without seeing betrayal wrapped in apathy. I started sleeping in the guest room full time. Told him I was going through something personal. He didn't push. Probably relieved I wasn't confronting him. One night, while he was asleep, I took his phone. I know, it's a betrayal of privacy. But after everything, it didn't feel like a violation. It felt like a recovery mission. I needed to know just how deep it went. Turns out, it went deeper than I thought. There were dozens of messages to Alina, some dating back to before we were even engaged. Some were friendly. Others weren't. You'll always be my person. I think about you when I can't sleep. She's not you. Don't give up on me. My heart didn't even break reading them. It just shut down. Like a tired light bulb flickering one last time. He'd been emotionally with her for years. I was just the placeholder. The comfortable alternative. The one who made things feel stable while he chased closure with a woman who couldn't give it. And he gave her my mother's ring. I didn't confront him the next morning. I didn't say a word, even with all that swirling in my chest. There's this strange, hollow calm that happens when you finally know, really know, the person you love isn't who you thought they were. It's like watching a house burn down in slow motion while sipping coffee on the lawn. There's nothing to stop. It's already gone. So I waited. Watched. I wanted to see if he'd come clean. Maybe even tell me the truth before I shoved it in his face. But Levi never did. He walked around like a man who'd successfully buried something, unaware the coffin was already half dug back up. A few days later, I got an unexpected call from Alina. I let it go to voicemail. She left a long message, her voice quieter than it had been at my door. No screaming this time. Just tired. She said she wanted to apologize. Said she'd had time to think, to put the pieces together, and she realized Levi had been manipulating her for years. He used me, she said, her voice cracking. He told me you were cruel. Controlling. That you hated the ring. That it meant nothing to you. He made me feel like I was saving something sacred. But I think he just wanted to feel like a hero to someone. I didn't cry listening to her voice. But I did feel something unexpected, pity. Not for her. For me. For the version of myself who thought love meant swallowing hurt if it came with enough nice gestures. For the woman who thought silence was just stress and that disappearing items were just forgetfulness. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with his phone beside mine, both screens locked. My hand hovered over it. I already had screenshots, enough to shatter the facade he built. But I was waiting for the moment to use them. Timing mattered now. Not for revenge. For freedom. Levi came into the kitchen, sipping something, whiskey, probably. He leaned against the counter and looked at me like he was waiting for permission to keep pretending. "What's going on with you lately?" he asked. "You're cold." "You gave me frostbite," I said, without looking up. He chuckled, the kind of nervous laugh someone uses when they're pretending to take a joke that isn't one. "Seriously, though. What's your deal?" I lifted my eyes to meet his and said nothing. And that's when it happened. He smiled. Smiled like a man who had no clue his empire was about to cave in. "I've been thinking," he said, walking over and sliding into the seat across from me. "Maybe we should take a trip. Reset. Go back to Asheville for a weekend. Get away from the stress." "Asheville?" I echoed. "Yeah. We need a break. You've been tense." I almost laughed. "Almost." "Instead," I said, "you want to take me on a getaway to the same town where you started messaging your ex again?" He froze. His eyebrows twitched. "Not a lot. But enough." "What?" I slid his phone across the table. Unlocked. Open to one of the many saved messages. One where he told Alina he still dreamed about her and wished he had proposed to her instead. Silence. Thicker this time. Not fog, this was concrete. "How did you left your backup password in your notes app?" Along with a love letter to her. "Sweet, really?" He leaned back. His eyes narrowed. "So you went through my phone?" "You stole from me," I said flatly. "The ring. The truth. My peace of mind." He didn't argue. He just sat there, lips pressed into a tight line. I let the silence hang until it turned into a weight pressing on both our shoulders. "You never stopped loving her," I said. He ran a hand through his hair, finally breaking the stare. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it, Levi?" He looked back at me then, and for once, I think I saw the real version of him, not the curated version I met at the bookstore, not the charming man who held my hand during storms or rubbed my back when my job stressed me out. No. This was the Levi who justified betrayal by calling it compassion. "She was broken," he said. "And I didn't know how to say no. She needed someone. So you made her feel loved and made me feel like nothing. I never meant to hurt you. But you did." His mouth opened, but this time, he had no script. No smooth lines. No moral high ground to stand on. Just the wreckage of his own decisions staring back at him. "I think you should leave," I said. He looked surprised. Actually surprised. "Carmen, I'm not asking." He sat still for a long time, then finally stood. Walked out of the kitchen. I heard him packing that night, heard zippers and drawers and the quiet clatter of shoes being shoved into a duffel bag. He didn't say goodbye. Not that I expected him to. But he didn't take the ring this time. I'd locked it away. A few days later, I ran into Alora at a cafe downtown. I told her everything. From the ring, to the messages, to Alina's visit, to Levi walking out. She shook her head slowly, setting her coffee down. "That man always felt too clean," she said. "Like he wore a costume he couldn't take off." We sat in silence for a while after that. Two women, bonded by blood and betrayal, sipping bitter coffee in the late afternoon light. "I think the hardest part," I finally said, "is realizing he didn't see me." "Not really. I was a placeholder. A good fit. A safe bet." Alora reached out and put her hand over mine. "He didn't see you because he never looked." That night, I went home and opened my mom's box. Not just the porcelain one where I kept the ring, but her old cedar memory chest from the attic. Photos. Handwritten recipes. Letters. Her perfume, still faint on a silk scarf. It smelled like lilacs and comfort. I sat on the floor and cried for the first time since it all began. Not for Levi. But for the part of me that kept trying to be enough for someone who already had someone else in his heart. And for my mother, who never got to see me stand up for myself like this. A week after Levi left, I finally breathed. Not one of those shallow, automatic breaths you take while pushing through a bad day, but a full, soul-deep exhale. The kind that makes your chest feel hollowed out and free. Like I'd been underwater for 3 years without realizing it, and someone had just opened the surface above me. But that peace didn't last long. Because a lie that big never leaves quietly. People started talking. It started with Malcolm. He reached out again, asked if I was okay. Said Levi was staying with an old college friend in Raleigh, licking his wounds. That's how he put it. I almost laughed when he said it, like Levi was the one who'd been betrayed. Then the text started. First, from Levi's cousin, Arlo, who apparently thought I needed a reminder to be gracious. He's not a bad person, Carmen. You two just needed different things. Let him heal. Heal? He stole from me. Lied to me. Gaslit me into questioning my own memory, made his ex believe I was the villain, and handed her a piece of my dead mother for closure like it was a hand-me-down hoodie. And I was supposed to let him heal? I didn't respond. Then came the harder ones, friends who didn't know the full story. People who'd only seen the version of Levi he polished for public view. The helpful husband. The sensitive creative type. The one who cried at wedding videos and made pancakes on Sundays. They wanted to know what happened. Why he left. Why I looked so composed. One of them even asked, was it just about the ring? Or was there more? Just the ring? I didn't answer that one either. I stopped explaining. Stopped defending myself. I let them think what they wanted. People always will. But Alina? She kept surprising me. About 2 weeks after everything blew up, she messaged me again. Not to apologize. Not to rehash. But to ask if I'd be willing to talk. At first, I wanted to say no. I owed her nothing. She had my ring, my husband, emotionally, at least, for God knows how long. Even if she'd been manipulated, I didn't owe her closure. But something told me to meet her. So I agreed. 1 hour. A public spot. No dramatics. We met at a botanical garden cafe just outside town. I wore neutral colors. I don't know why. Maybe to feel invisible. Maybe to not show up looking like someone you fight with. She was already there when I arrived, sitting under a shaded trellis, nursing a cup of tea like it might tell her something. She stood up when she saw me, looked unsure whether to hug me or not. I didn't move, so she didn't. Thank you, she said first. For coming. I nodded. I wasn't sure I would. She sat. I sat. A bee buzzed near the sugar jar and she flinched. I didn't. I just wanted to say, she began slowly, I think he's still lying. I blinked. About what? Everything, she said. Us. You. The ring. The stories he told. After I gave it back, he messaged me like I betrayed him. Told me I ruined everything. Said he'd never forgive me. That sounds like him, I said, almost absently. She leaned in, voice dropping. I thought he loved me. I did. But now I think he just needed someone to need him. He couldn't let me go, but he didn't want me either. I didn't respond right away. I just watched her. She looked different now, smaller somehow. Less threatening. Like someone who'd just woken up from a long, fevered dream. I wanted to hate you, I finally said. When you showed up screaming at my door. I wanted to scream back. Throw something. But you were just as fooled as I was. She nodded slowly. I think he liked playing the savior. I think he liked being the victim, I added. We sat there for a while longer, sipping our drinks like we weren't two women with a long history of betrayal knotted between them. Eventually, she reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. I know this is weird, she said, sliding it across the table. But I found these. He sent them to me after you got married. I thought you should see them. I hesitated. Inside were printed emails, love letters, typed, some handwritten, that spanned years. Some dated right after our wedding. Others, during our engagement. I scanned the first one, then stopped. It was too much. I slid the envelope into my bag. I'll read them later. I just thought, you should know. I stood up, ready to leave. I already do. She didn't try to follow. Didn't ask if we'd talk again. I think we both knew that was it. Whatever she came for, she got. Whatever I needed, I already had. Back home, I finally opened the envelope. And I don't know what I expected to feel, reading those words. Anger? Betrayal? Shock? But I felt nothing. The words blurred after a while. All the I miss yous and you were always my home and I shouldn't have let you go just became noise. Because when you've been lied to so deeply, so convincingly, it's not the content of the lie that breaks you, it's the quiet, cruel intention behind it. The willingness to leave you in the dark. To twist love into something transactional. To take and take and take until there's nothing left but ashes. And Levi? He was all ashes now. I burned the letters in my fireplace that night. One by one. No ceremony. No crying. Just heat, paper, and the sound of silence. But even after the flames died out, his fallout wasn't done. Because then, Jean found out. My aunt had always been one of Levi's biggest supporters. He'd helped her move after her divorce. Designed a logo for her small pottery business. She thought he walked on water. And when I told her what he'd done? She sat in silence, her hand over her mouth, for a solid 10 minutes. I'm so sorry, baby, she whispered finally. I had no idea. No one did, I said. She looked at me like I'd survived something she couldn't imagine, and maybe, in some ways, I had. Not a car accident. Not a fire. But the slow, invisible damage of loving someone who wore your skin like a jacket and gave pieces of you away when you weren't looking. But the final straw wasn't a phone call or a message or a box of letters. It was something small. Mundane. I was cleaning out the closet when I found a shoebox on the top shelf, one I didn't recognize. Inside were old receipts, photos, and a flash drive. Out of habit, I plugged the drive into my laptop. And what I saw? Well, let's just say that's where everything shifted for good. Inside the shoebox was a dusty old flash drive, tucked beneath wrinkled receipts from hotel stays I didn't recognize. Some were local. Some weren't. One, bizarrely, was from a cabin in Banner Elk, a place Levi told me he went alone to reset his creativity the winter before. I clicked the flash drive into my laptop. There were folders. One called Inspiration, which turned out to be full of photos, stock images of nature, cities, and weirdly, a few shots of Alina from years ago. But the one that mattered was buried deeper. A folder marked with just one date, our wedding day. Inside were voice memos. One after another. And he'd labeled them. Some were from days we had major fights. Others were random dates. But one was labeled, "Before I do." I listened. His voice came through, clear, soft, unsure. He was talking to himself. Or to Alina. I'm marrying her tomorrow, he said. It's not what I want, but I think it's the right thing. I can't keep chasing a ghost. Alina's gone. She doesn't want me. Carmen, she's stable. Kind. She'll take care of me. I sat there frozen. Every word sliced clean. She's not the love of my life, but she'll be good for me. I can learn to love her. Or something like it. Maybe that's enough. That was the moment everything snapped into focus. He had married me not because he loved me, but because I was convenient. And now, even after everything he'd taken, emotionally, materially, symbolically, he was still out there, probably spinning his own version of the story to anyone who'd listen. That's when the idea for revenge settled in. Not cruel. Not violent. Just honest. Clean. Surgical. I didn't want to destroy his life. I just wanted to shine a light so bright on his lies that he couldn't hide in the shadows anymore. I started small. The first thing I did was contact the clients I had helped him land over the years. He used my connections often, people in my marketing circles, some even close friends. I sent polite emails, nothing inflammatory, just letting them know Levi and I had separated and that, in light of some unethical behavior on his part, I wouldn't be recommending him for future work. Most were stunned. Some replied with simple thanks. A few asked for more, but I kept it professional. No slander. Just facts. Then, I reached out to Malcolm. He had always been torn, loyal to his brother, but disgusted by what he'd done to me. I showed him the recordings. The photos. The letters. I didn't ask him to pick sides, but I think he did the moment he heard that before I do memo. He sent me a text the next morning, "He's dead to me. If you need anything, I'm here." One by one, Levi's narrative unraveled. Then came the final piece. Levi was in the middle of launching a new freelance brand. A personal rebrand, if you will. He'd called it Lark Design Studio, all sleek fonts and emotionally manipulative copy about storytelling through empathy. Cute. Unfortunately for him, he made the mistake of announcing it in a joint Facebook group we'd both once belonged to, designers and creatives across the Southeast. So, I made my post. Calm. Measured. Not bitter. Not emotional. Just a simple post. Hi all, just a quick heads up for anyone who may consider working with Levi. He's recently rebranded as Lark Design Studio. Please be advised that he has a documented history of unethical behavior, including theft of personal heirlooms, breach of trust in professional partnerships, and ongoing emotional manipulation of clients and collaborators. If you'd like further information or documentation, I'm happy to provide it privately. It blew up. Privately. I shared the voice recording and proof with those who asked. No one flinched. Many responded with support. Some shared their own weird stories about working with him. 2 weeks later, his brand was dead. Clients ghosted him. A few posted publicly, retracting testimonials. One mutual connection even removed a podcast episode they had recorded with him. "We don't support predatory professionals," the host wrote. And just like that, his precious rebrand, the fresh start he thought he could launch while leaving wreckage in his wake, was toast. But I wasn't done. I mailed him a box. Inside, a flash drive with the recordings. A printed photo of me wearing my mother's ring. And a note. Closure doesn't come in stolen things. It comes when you realize you'll never have the power to rewrite someone else's story again. Carmen, no return address. Just the box. Simple, clean, surgical. He didn't respond. I never expected him to. But I heard through Malcolm that he tried to clear his name online, blaming me for sabotaging his career. Most people didn't buy it. Especially once the screenshots of his messages and the voice memos began circulating in private industry groups. He faded. Quietly. Not destroyed. Not publicly humiliated. Just exposed. The kind of consequence that lives in whispers. The kind that follows you without screaming your name, but ruins the trust you once had in every room you enter. I kept the ring. Got it resized and cleaned. Wore it around my neck for a while. Now, it sits in a glass case with my mom's photo behind it, her smiling in that linen dress she loved, holding a mug with both hands like it was her last little joy. I still miss her. But I think she'd be proud. Because I didn't just survive a bad marriage. I didn't just endure betrayal. I ended it on my terms. With no screaming. No drama. Just the truth, steady and sharp, slicing through every lie he ever built around me.